All right, I'm Shad. I'm from Canada. For people who don't know, for people who do know Canada's geography a little bit, I grew up in a town 2 hours from Toronto. I live in Vancouver now. And yeah, I'm a hip hop artist. I've made 3 albums. The latest one just recently came out in the EU. And yeah, I'm here in Germany for the first time doing my thing. How I started was just as a fan. So, you know, just a fan of hip hop, freestyling in high school, you know, listening to, like, for me, like, important records in high school, like Outkast, Aquemini, De La Soul, Stakes is High, Common. I was a big Common fan in high school, Biggie, you know, so those were a lot of, like, the main influences in terms of just like what I listened to in high school. And then as I got a bit older, it just became a creative outlet, a way I could just like express myself and have a lot of fun at the same time. And so it was really slow kind of progression. Just got a chance to make my first album, and from there just playing shows and making more and more music. My family is originally from Rwanda. I was born in Kenya, and actually my parents and my little brother live in Rwanda now. They retired and moved back. Yeah, so there was a conflict in 1959, and so my parents left Rwanda when they were little. They lived all over Central and East Africa. So, you know, DRC, Uganda, and Kenya, where I was born. And then we moved to Canada. So when the conflict was going on in 1994, the genocide there, fortunately, my immediate family was in Canada, but a lot of my extended family was in Rwanda. And a lot of them got killed. I think like a big impact, like indirectly, you know, like because I feel lucky, you know. I feel lucky to be alive. I feel lucky not just to be alive, but like to have the opportunity to make music, you know. So yeah, I mean that's the thing that just sticks with me all the time in the back of my mind is like I'm really lucky to be here. Yeah, definitely. Like growing up, like when I was really young, I mean, I wasn't even really aware of differences between American and Canadian hip-hop. Like, our TV video stations would play the Maestro videos side by side with the, you know, whatever else was hot at the time. So, yeah, definitely for us, like, Maestro's the king. Mishimi's the queen, you know? Like, they did their thing, and they're still great performers, you know? They still know this art really well. Chauclair, Socrates, like these are a lot of our like pioneers and our heroes. Yeah, that's always kind of been there. And I think like the thing that's affected it, I think it's sort of affected our generation like in a good way, because we came out making music like whatever, like I guess we might not ever get taken seriously, but it doesn't matter because like we care about our music and we're gonna just do our thing. So I think I definitely came into it without any expectations. It was just like, I don't know if people are gonna take me seriously, but I just don't really care. So yeah, so it's kind of had a positive effect on like the newer generation. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle like in that time. Yeah. I mean, you would definitely always like, because those are our heroes too, you know, that we grew up with. Like, you know, we're going to play in Paris and open up for DJ Premier, and it's just like, that's still DJ Premier to us. Like, that's like, yo, you get props from someone like that, or like, you know, that still means a lot. But at the same time, I think we might have stopped worrying about that so much, you know? It's just kind of like, hey, like, if they take to it, they take to it. If they don't, they don't. But at the same time, like, especially from that generation of artists that we listened to growing up, getting respect from them, it still means a lot. Yeah, it's music first is always my thing. Like, it's music first. It's got to be something that people enjoy, you know. And I think it's the same thing with like rhymes too and poetry. It's like, yeah, you want it to have meaning and have a message, but like poetry is meant to be something that you enjoy first, you know, and music also. So I always try to like keep that in mind, you know what I mean? It's not a lecture, it's not, you know, it's music first. And then, yeah, I mean, the content is what, that will stick with people, you know? That's where you get to share part of your story, that's where you get to make it a little bit unique as well, but it's music first, you gotta remember that. It's fun. That's why, you know, when you're 15 and you start freestyling, it's not because of a political conflict somewhere, it's because it's fun. That's why you did it, yeah. I think that sampling sound is like, it's so classic within hip hop and even like specific like beat machines, you know? have such a specific sound that we all associate with hip hop. So I think part of it is just in Canada, like the stakes aren't as high. You know what I mean? Like if Kanye's doing a record, it's like that's gonna sell a lot, you know. Whereas, you know, if you're coming out with your own mixtape or your own album in Canada, it's on a bit of a smaller scale or whatever. But I mean, I still love that sound. Like you said, you know, it just like it just feels like hip hop right away when you hear it. And a lot of the sources of the music, I mean, you can source anything, you know. Yeah, as far as production, I usually work with a range of guys. My DJ here, Tilo, he did a couple beats on the album. Me and John, who's a production team, they did a couple. So yeah, so it's I usually like use a cast of people. Yeah, a lot of times when it's album time, it's like, all right, I sit down with a stack of beat tapes, you know. Just play them, see what I'm feeling, and then if I have the chance, I'll bring the producer into the studio when we're like loading up the stems, the stem tracks, and kind of just talk about the song. I talk about, this is what I liked in the beat, this is what I might add, this is what I'm thinking of doing with the song. You know, just get their feedback on some of the specific stuff that they've done as far as processing and that, and then I usually take it from there with whoever I'm engineering with. I'd say the main difference between TSOL and the previous albums is like just a general progression, I think, in my own ability to express myself like concisely, you know. I think I can use less words now, and I'm trying to make it more and more musical, like we were talking about before. I think my first album was you know, a lot of 24-bar verses and 30-bar verses, and now it's just like I feel like I can communicate my ideas into the 16-bar verse, and yeah, so I think that's part of the progression you'll hear in this album, and I think the themes are more universal too. Whereas in previous albums, I think it was a lot more personal. This is still a personal record, but I think the themes relate to more people. One thing I like about it is that it's lost backwards. Yeah, and so yeah, TSOL is lost backwards, and I like the idea that, you know, when a word is backwards and you look at it in the mirror, you can see what it really is. And I think like a lot of times when we're lost, we don't know we're lost. You know, it takes that moment of looking into a mirror, for example. And as far as writing goes, that's the funnest thing for me, is writing. That's what I enjoy the most. So, you know, sometimes I can get pretty layered with the wordplay, but I try to keep it on a level where it's like, what I'm trying to say, you understand, you know. I try to keep the punchlines in there because that's a lot of fun. But yeah, I like to stack the meaning a lot. And that way, sometimes the songs, I can write something and find out, like there's meaning that comes out of it that I didn't even know yet, you know. And then it just comes out in the wordplay. So it's fun for me that way. But definitely the writing is fun for me. I take a lot of time with it, and I try to make sure it's interesting on a lot of different levels. I learned French in school. I went to a French school till grade 11. And so I can speak French, but I've been out of French school for like 10 years now. So like I can speak French, but I don't know if I can really express myself creatively in French. You know, like be nuanced and be clever and do all of that stuff. So I just stick to English for music. But if I'm doing a show in Montreal or something, I might do a little freestyle in French or something like that, you know. But as far as being good at what I do, I kind of stick with English. It definitely doesn't happen in the States. I don't know about Europe, like the different countries probably have different policies as far as of government support for artists, but in Canada, yeah, we have a couple like government organizations sort of dedicated to just helping support our own cultural identity, because, you know, being right beside the States and them producing, you know, Hollywood films and, you know, big budget albums and stuff that gets pushed in Canada a lot. It's like a mandate of our government to try and promote Canadian culture. So, yeah, there's a lot of support for musicians and, you know, other forms of artists as well, documentary filmmakers and all sorts of stuff, so that Canada has its own cultural identity as well. And I think one of the cool things about that is that artists in Canada then aren't thinking always about selling, you know, their music. They're thinking about making great music because there's a little bit more support there. So, you know, in the last 10 years, you've seen Broken Social Scene, you know, Chaos, Metric, Arcade Fire, you know, all these bands coming out of Canada that get acclaim worldwide for making great creative music. I think because Canada's an environment where they can think about that first, like how can I make a really great creative album, you know, and then if it sells, great, and if it doesn't sell, then maybe we still have some support. It's cool. Sometimes they'll cover half of your costs, so like after your tour you can report your costs and, you know, what you've paid, and they'll reimburse half. You know, other times they might, you know, fund the whole thing. Other times you know, you get nothing. But yeah, so there's different kinds of like funding for touring or marketing and different things. Yeah. No, Drake is a real talented artist, and like you said, you know, he came up as a, you know, as a fan of Fonte. I've heard him mention a bunch of times, and Little Brother and that whole sound. Yeah, he's definitely put a spotlight on Canada, you know, him alongside Kanon and some of these other artists. And yeah, I mean, I think in Canada especially, we're very excited about Canadian hip-hop right now because of Drake's success and Kanon and a lot of these other guys. So it's a cool time, and hopefully some of that will kind of translate and help me get some more exposure as well. It's been cool. I would say the hip-hop scene in Canada right now, if you were to look at the artists who do well in Canada, it would look sort of like very different from mainstream American hip-hop. Like, our most successful artists are, they do something that's like probably a little bit left of center compared to what's going on down there. But I think the best thing about it is just the range, you know? You have what Drake's doing, you have what Chaos is doing, you have what Cardinal's doing, you have what Kanon's doing. You know, there's Classified. I don't know if you guys know Classified, but he's, you know, real straight up like classic hip-hop type of sound. There's a guy named, an artist named Decisive, who's reemerged lately, and he's made like really kind of personal type of records. Cadence Weapon, who does something completely different. So one of the coolest things I think about Canadian hip-hop scene right now is everybody's different. Like, all the artists that are like kind of making a bit of headway are unique. If you come to Canada, then you see it, man. Like, they play a Decisive video back-to-back with a Kanon video, back-to-back with a Drake video and one of my videos, and it's like you have a real range of artists. It's cool. Like, when we got to Germany, so this is our first time in Germany, and when we got here, we got to Berlin 2 days ago, and everybody had been telling us about Berlin, and it's wild, man. It's wild. Like, it's really cool, like, to see all the street art everywhere. We went to this Takalus. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Yeah. You know, that's so fresh and so different. It's been really cool. Yeah. You can definitely see like how vibrant the creative scene here is, like the art scene, and like it's dope. Yeah, I think like this day and age in music, and we were talking about this like on the drive too, is like because of the internet and everything, and because there's so many different artists, it's like a lot of times the people who really invest time and make quality music is what eventually rises to the surface. It doesn't matter that much about your budget anymore. Like, that still matters, but not as much as just making stuff that actually resonates with people, you know? So it's been really encouraging too to see, like, in Canada, the Junos and the Polaris and you know, critics and people in the industry being like, hey, this is good, and like, I want to support this, you know? I think a lot of times as an artist in your head, you have your image of the evil industry people, but it's like these people got involved in music because they love music, you know? And if you make music that's real, it's been cool to see some of these people that work in the industry stand up and be like, I want to support this. Like, this seems like it's, you know, honest and real. I'm not working on anything just yet. Like, since the album came out in Canada in late May, we've just been on tour. So we toured in Canada, then the album came out in the States, and we toured the States. Now it's out here. We're touring out here. So I've been on the road too much to really work on anything yet. But sometime in the new year, I'll probably hit the studio, and I'm always writing, so.